Hello. So today we're going to talk about 101 Dalmatians. I don't have a Dalmatian, but I have a Samoyed. As with the other videos, as you've seen, he may stick around, he may not. Are you going to stick around for the video? He does this a lot. He likes to put his head out the window. He prefers when he can put his whole head out the window, but that doesn't work very well for recording. So he may stick around, he may not. But let's just get this back to a better angle. Hi, we're back. Rainy's still here for the moment. See how long that lasts. He's staring at me like I'm being mean because I won't let him put his whole head out the window when it's really cold outside. No, you're not getting your head out the window yet. You can wait until after. As I said, we are going to be talking about 101 Dalmatians, which came out in 1961. Setting of the 101 Dalmatians is, of course, London, in the same year that that the movie takes place in. It's actually one of the rare Disney movies for the time that takes place in the same year. The dog wants out. I'll be right back. So, the dog's out of the room. May come back, may not. I've gathered up a bunch of different of my dog stuffed animals or plushies. I actually remember that I have a Dalmatian statue somewhere, but I don't remember where exactly. I will see if I can have that for, I guess, a later video, since this video is going to mostly focus on the original, the animated sequel, the two animated series that they have, House of Mouse stuff and Kingdom Hearts stuff. So most of the animated stuff. And then the other video will be about the live action stuff, the two live action movies with Glenn Close and the Once Upon a Time stuff and the Descendants stuff. Simply just because there's enough there with the live action stuff that I prefer to do that as its own. So I might see about having the statue during that one. No, I will not be dressing up like Cruella de Vil because I don't have anything that fits those color schemes. I have a wolf shirt on today because it's unfortunately the closest thing that I have to a dog that wasn't the shirt that I wore already. I need to get some Lady on the Tram stuff and some 101 Dalmatian stuff. But that just hasn't happened yet. So, start off with the original movie. As I said, takes place in London in the same time frame that the movie is made. As I said, it's one of the rare Disney movies that takes place in the same time frame as it's being made. The other one being Dumbo takes place in the same time frame that Dumbo was made in. So the 1940s era. This 101 Dalmatians takes place in the 1960s. So, of course, we get the opening of the movie I love the opening of the movie in regards to the opening credits. It's like all the spots dancing around and all the great music and the spots going into different things. And I just find that adorable for how they do that. I just think that's so cute. Then we get into, of course, the introduction is Pongo talking about how him and his pet, Roger. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of animals just refer to us as their pets because they think that they take care of us when we're, emotionally, they take care of us a lot of the time. Monetarily and food-wise, we tend to take care of them. That's the way that it is. That's at least the way that Rainy seems to act. Although he's not the best emotional support dog. But I love you. Hey, I warned you with the Lady and the Tramp videos that you were probably going to learn a lot about Rainy. And I warned you again. I'm warning you now. For the 101 Dalmatians video, you'll probably learn more about Rainy and my relationship with him. I still love him, but he's still a pain in the butt. Yeah. So we get Pongo introducing himself and Roger, and then we get Pongo thinking about, well, I need to find him a mate. What should I find him? Dogs are not a good judge of human beauty, so he's having looking at all the magazines And then we get him looking out the window, trying to find, a human dog, a female human and a female dog combo that could work for the two of them. We get this art lady and her dog. We get this more stout lady and her little dog. We get the lady with the poodle, who Pongo's just like, ooh, poodle. I don't know what it looks like when a Dalmatian and a poodle have babies, but if I find a picture, I will put it here. I'm assuming it's really fluffy and has spots, but I don't know. I will find out when I look up that picture. Then we get, of course, the old lady on the bike rolls by, and it's like, too old. Kid with the little puppy, too young. And then we get Anita and Perdita. Of course, we don't know their names at the time. We get them going along, and of course, Pongo's just like, they're going to the park. Looks at the clock. Roger's not done with work yet. Fixed time on clock. I'm like, I love how smart Pongo is. I think Dalmatians are supposed to be some of the smarter dogs. I know that not all. No, dogs are not stupid. Mine's not stupid. He's just stubborn. He's not stupid. Very, very stubborn and hard-headed. So, Pongo tricks Roger into leaving the house early so they can go run to the park. They pass by all the other dogs, or pass by several of the other dogs, and then they see, Anita and Perdita. And we get Pongo setting up the cute meat, steals Roger's hat, messes with him that way, and then he ends up wrapping the leash around Anita and Roger's legs, and then that, cute meat results in them, tied up, and then falling into the lake, and then, or falling in the little pond, and then the two of them kind of just hit it off after they have a slight argument of, my new outfit, my new hat, my new... for Anita, it's like, you fell in water. I don't blame you for being, distraught. And then we get, that leads to them, falling in love and getting married. And we get the Anita and Roger getting married, and Pongo and Perdita getting married, which I just find adorable. And of course, we cut ahead a little bit to Anita and Roger and Pongo and Perdita living in, nice little house for them. And we get in, we found out at the beginning that Roger is a songwriter. And Anita and Roger are actually one of my favorite human couples that is not like one of the Disney princess couples where it's like, prince, princess, whatever. They're a very affectionate married couple, and I love how they drew that. I love how the animators made that interaction happen, because we still see them flirting with each other, with, Roger coming down and them flirting and bumping noses, and then later on when he's dancing around, when he's singing Cruella de Vil and everything. I love how they show that interaction between the two of them. They are one of my favorite human couples in Disney. Outside of like princess couples. And even then, they're definitely up there in my rankings for the couples. I know there's not a lot of, human couples that aren't, Disney princess couples, but they're definitely one of the ones at the top of the list. Someday I'll make that list. That'll be a video down the line. But we also have the introduction of Nanny, who is just, their housekeeper, a very sweet, lady that helps around the house and everything. Very much loves Pongo and Perdita, very much, loves Anita and Roger. And then we get the introduction of Cruella de Vil. And I love how they structured this scene, because we know that Roger is a songwriter, and there's not that many songs throughout, 101 Dalmatians. There's Cruella de Vil at this point, and then at the end there's Dalmatian Plantation. But I love how they work Cruella de Vil, the song, into this scene, because how they work the song around the character for this scene, I find that's just masterful in how they did this, because you have Cruella pull up in her de Vil, which, great car, but I don't want one. And then you have Roger starting with the idea of the song. getting, the beat in his head, and, the melody first, and then he works, gets the lyrics going in his head, and then he starts going up the stairs as he's singing, and then he's like, she'll hear you, as she's going to the door to get Cruella. And, Cruella just bursts in, cigarette in hand, great fur coat. I will admit it is a very nice fur coat. I'm not going to deny that. And like upstairs in his studio area, you have Roger playing the piano and stomping to the lyrics and doing the trumpet and everything in the background in the scene, and it just provides like music to the scene. You see Cruella interacting with the music as Roger plays, and she's Dr. Anita and everything, and I want to know how Anita and Cruella became friends, because they don't seem like they would be two people that would get along very well. And we get Cruella trying to pet Pongo, and Pongo's just like I will bite you, lady. I will rip your throat out. Perdita ran off to go hide. Anita's, we know that Cruella is visiting because we know that Purdy is expecting puppies, and she wants to try to get the puppies. At this point in time, we don't quite know why she wants the puppies, but we know she does. And Anita is just like, no, they won't be here for another 3 weeks. And, Cruella and, Roger's, still playing his music extremely loudly, and eventually Cruella leaves. And Roger comes down, and he's got like his cigar or his cigarette holder, and he's got like the sweater or whatever that he's using to pretend to use as like a neck, fur around his neck, and imitating Cruella. And him and Anita are like dancing around and everything. Again, great interaction between this married couple. Very affectionate. Admittedly, like with the Disney couples, we get a little bit of that with Lady and the Tramp, more in the sequel, simply because at that point in time they've been together for a little while longer. We get a little bit at the end of Lady and the Tramp, but not very much. And then like with the Disney princesses, it's they get their prince, and then they get in the original movies, it's they get their prince, and then Snow White and her prince rode off into the sunset back to his castle. Cinderella and the prince got married, and we see a tiny snippet of there, and then with Aurora and Philip, we get them in the forest, and that's about as much of an interaction as we get with them. And then at the end, when they come down and they're dancing around the ballroom, and those are about the only times we see those interactions with different couples, because like Dumbo doesn't have any couples. We get in Bambi, we get Bambi and Feline a little bit, and we don't get too much with that, and a bunch of the other ones, there's not that many couples. Lady and the Tramp, we get a little bit with that, Sleeping Beauty, as I mentioned, but there's not a whole, and Alice in Wonderland doesn't really have any couples. King of Hearts, Queen of Hearts, but that's no. And then we have, Peter Pan doesn't really have any couples. We have, Tink very much loves Peter Pan. Wendy has a crush on Peter Pan. The mermaids have a crush on Peter Pan. But he's not interested in any of them. Not in that case. Beyond like, oh, how much can you flatter me type thing. Well, he does care about them, but it's not romantic love or anything like that. And, with Anita and Roger, it's the first time that we actually see in Disney a couple that is married and is very much physically attracted to each other, and is showing very much affection for each other. And I like that. And we get the same thing with Pongo and Perdita, because when Cruella leaves, Pongo goes to find Perdita, and she's hiding underneath the stove, I think, in the kitchen. I know she's in the kitchen. I think she's hiding under the stove. And Pongo, scrunches up to get his head underneath there, because Perdita is just kind of, backed into this corner, because it's the furthest place in the house that she can get to hide from Cruella, in case Cruella goes looking for her, because she doesn't like Cruella, of course. Not that I blame her. And we get Pongo, getting his head underneath there, and, kind of pawing, gently scooching his way under to talk to her. And it's just a confined place, but it's like him reassuring of our pets won't let her do anything to you or the puppy. She's gone, our puppies are gonna be safe and everything. And we get this adorable little bit where it's like, and Pretty makes this the line of, sometimes, right now I wish we weren't having them. And Pongo just, he's calming her down, and he just does this little flick on the side of her cheek as a way of comforting her, and like snuggles into her. And I just find that adorable and so sweet. And sometimes with animation, it is the subtle things that make a difference. Just, the little touches here and there. Little facial reactions, little hand movements, placing your hand on something for comfort or whatever. Pongo doing his best to comfort Perdita. And then, we cut to 3 weeks later, and we get Roger just sitting there like the nervous parent, puffing on his pipe. Like, in time with the clock in the background, it's like everything's just like, no. It's like nothing's, it's just like very tense and quiet. Well, that's going on. And then, and like, Pongo is, waiting and everything, of course. And because Purdy's having the puppies, and then, it's like, 8 puppies, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 15 puppies, and, Pongo's all happy, and Roger's all happy, and Nanny's all happy, and then Nanny comes out, and she's like, 14, we lost this one. It's a little one that's, it's a little stillborn one that's, wrapped in the blanket, or wrapped in the little cloth, and she hands it to Roger. And, like, they're all sad again because, we lost one of the puppies. And, I mean, I've not really been around that many newborn puppies, or I haven't been around any case in time where it's, a puppy, puppies being born, or if there's a stillborn in the litter or a runt of the litter or whatever. I haven't really seen that. I've had cousins, unfortunately, that have had stillborn babies, and those are not easy to deal with by any degree. And I've had my sister's best friend's daughter, who is basically like a niece to me. She was born prematurely by several months. She thankfully ended up being fine and got to go home, and she's like 10, 11, or well, she's at like 10 to 13 now, and she's doing fine. But I remembered how worried all of us were at that point in time. And I very much understand the concept of, you don't want to lose this little puppy. It just came into the world. It's a baby. It's, you don't want to lose the baby. So, stillborns are not easy no matter who they are. And, so we have Roger, come up with the idea of like, well, so he starts like kind of gently, rubbing the puppy in the blanket. I'm assuming it's to like sometime warm it up, something along those lines, and decides that, or like, rubs it enough that it like warms it up, or I guess gets its heart going enough, gets its lungs going enough that it, it kind of, it comes back, it wakes up again or whatever. And like we get the little nose scooch out, and we get Pongo and it touch noses, which is adorable. And it's like we have 15 again, the bait, this one's fine type thing. And then Cruella in the window, 15. And then of course she, oh, they don't even have their spots yet. Horrid little white rats. It's like, they'll have their spots in a few weeks. And disguise that, and Cruella's like, oh, well then I'll buy them all now. When can they leave their mother? I'll pay you twice what they're worth. I was like, they can't leave their mother for, a while. And Roger's like, never. We're not selling the puppies. And I love how he just like stands up to Cruella. I love how he does that. Because Roger very much did not like Cruella at the beginning of the movie when she's first introduced, and we can very much tell that. And now he's like standing up to her, which I love. And it's like, no, we're not selling the puppies. Blah 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 blah. And and so Cruella gets angry and she leaves, and Anita is just like, oh, Roger dear, you were so wonderful. Again, I love Anita and Roger. And then we get, Pongo is of course so happy because, their human stood up for them, and, Pongo goes down and tells Perdita that, her and all the puppies are going to be fine and they're keeping all the puppies. And that, of course, makes Perdita very happy. And we get the adorable picture of all of the family together, which is just so sweet. And then we cut to a few weeks later. All the puppies have their spots. Lucky was the name of the one that was kind of stillborn. And we get, all the puppies have been named. There's like Rolly and Lucky and Patches and there's several others. I don't remember every single one of the 15 puppies, but it's like I have a hard enough time sometimes remembering all of the dwarves, but it's just like, no, I can do that. There's only 7 of them, but the puppies are a little bit more. And it's also they don't always state every single puppy's name. I don't know if they state every single of the 15 puppies' names in the original movie or not. I know when they have all 99 puppies, I don't think they ever end up naming every single one of them in the other media, like for the animated series that they had. But we'll get to that. And, so we get the funny bit of like all the dogs watching the television, and there's the Thunderbolt, about the hero dog is kind of like Rin Tin Tin. And they get the Canine Crunchies commercial and all of that, all the dogs, all the puppies interacting with their parents and everything, and then they all go off to bed, and Pongo and Perdita and Anita and Roger go out for their walk, and then we're introduced to, of course, Jasper and Horace. And first of all, okay, Cruella, if you're gonna hire people to steal a bunch of puppies, maybe you should hire ones that have a higher IQ. Same level of morality, but at least a higher IQ. Because we get the bit where they're, after Nanny's put all the puppies to bed, because that's how you put puppies to bed. I love Nanny. I love the puppies in this. And she, the doorbell rings and they go in, and she goes and checks on it. It's like, we're from the electric company. And electric is not spelled correctly. And I'm like, no. And you gotta give Nanny props. She at least tries her best to keep them out of the house and then to get them out of the house and everything. And they trick her and everything. You at least have to give her props for that. And unfortunately, Horace and Jasper trap her, and then they get the puppies, and then they leave. And then, of course, Anita and Roger and Annie and Pongo and Perdita are, of course, all heartbroken and everything because their puppies are gone. And Pongo and Perdita, of course, set up the Twilight Bark. Or they use the Twilight Bark to send a message about, 15 puppies stolen. And, 15 Dalmatian puppies. And, we get the big Great Dane and the little tiny terrier, and which is just adorable. And then we get it passed on and on. And, in the Twilight Bark sequence, as I mentioned in the Lady and the Tramp video, this is where we get the cameos of Jacques, and where we have Peg and Bull in the pet shop window, and then where we have Lady and Tramp in the Twilight Bark when all the dogs are barking at the end of it to send the information on. So, we get a lot of that. And then, of course, that sends the Twilight Bark through, passing it on and on and on. And get to this dog and this goose, and, this older dog that lives on a farm, and its friend goose, its friend that's a goose. And then they pass it on even further to this, big old sheepdog and a horse and a cat. The Colonel and Captain, and then Sergeant Tibbs is the cat. The Captain is the horse. Yeah, the Captain is a horse. Colonel is the dog, and because reasons. And I love how it was like cat and dog getting along great. Not all cats are horrible. Sometimes cats and dogs get along fine. Just depends on the cat and the dog. I have a coworker who has like 3 cats and 2 dogs, and for the most part they get along fine. And they pass, and they get the whole interaction. They're like, okay, well, how about, we go at Hell Hole, the DeVille place. And they're like, okay, so the cat, Lieutenant Tibbs, Sergeant Tibbs sneaks into the DeVille place, and he just sees puppies everywhere. Jasper and Horace are there, and of course we get Tibbs talking to, you know, one of the other random puppies that doesn't that was bought from a pet shop. It's not from Anita or Roger. And I was like, well, all of us are bought and paid for, and there's 99 of us all together, but there's a group at the front that have collars by the TV, and then, you know, it's like this one, you know, counts all the ones, and it's like 15. Okay, we found them. And then he goes back and says, okay, well, and then they pass the message back. It's not stated, I don't think, exactly how long it takes for the message to get to them and get back, and then for Pongo and Perdita to come through and everything. I would assume it at least takes a couple of days to get all the information passed around, and for Pongo and Perdita to travel, you know, because they you know, they get the message back, and then they, you know, leave Anita and Roger's house, and, you know, they kind of run away. Anita and Roger, of course, think that they ran away. They didn't. They're going to find their puppies, and they get to, you know, Great Dane leads them to where they keep going, and then leads them to, you know, the Sergeant Tibbs and the Colonel, and then, of course, the Sergeant Tibbs, of course, goes into the house again, and, you know, gets all the puppies out, because that's when, you know, Pearl's gonna have Jasper and Horace, you know, poison them, drown them, bash them on the head. Just do it, and do it now! Okay, my day job does not result in me wanting to be able to shout like that again. But, you know, so they're supposed to, you know, kill the puppies and then skin them to make coats out of. Trust me, I don't like it any more than you do. And, you know, so Sergeant Tibbs helped get the puppies away from Jasper and Horace, and they get, you know, chased through the manor and everything. And then Pongo and Perdita, you know, interact with the Colonel, and he says, they're in, you know, your puppies are in the Hell Hall in the DeVille place. I was like, that devil woman. And of course, you know, we get them getting in, and we get, you know, Tibbs has, you know, himself between the puppies and Jasper and Horace, and they're trapped in the corner, as you see here. And then that's when Pongo and Perdita burst in, and yeah, you try to keep puppies away from their parents after you kidnap them, and you see how happy the parents are when you're threatening their babies' lives. That applies to a lot of animals, like, you know, grizzly bears and lions and other large cats and wolves and, you know, to anything else that has that maternal instinct. There's other animals that don't have so much of that, like some insects and sharks, but there's a lot of other ones that do. And of course, you know, so they're growling, and they attack Jasper and Horace, and the cat gets all the puppies out of there and gets them all back to the southern barn, where the Colonel and Captain and Lieutenant Tibbs live. And, you know, so they're reunited with their 15 puppies, but then they have all the other 99 minus 15 is 84. All the other 84 puppies. And they're just like, okay, well, what can we do with all these puppies? We can't just leave them here. So they're just like, we'll take them home. Our pets wouldn't turn them away. And, you know, so they decide to take all the puppies with them. And then, of course, we get the whole big, you know, Jasper and Horace show up, and they try to, you know, get all the puppies, but they escape, and they get attacked by a horse, which is just funny. Cat and horse team up. And, you know, and then we get, Cruella telling him, okay, well, you have to keep searching for the puppies. So, you know, the dogs and everything are going, and, you know, they hide on the river. And I love how Horace and Jasper Horace keeps thinking of what the puppies are doing. Like, well, what if they were walking on the river as to hide their tracks? Dogs aren't that smart. I'm like, survival instinct? I wouldn't necessarily think Rainy's that smart or that clever, but we don't tend to put him in life or death situations. That's not really a thing we do with the dog. So, you know, Pongo and Perdita are, you know, they get into this, you know, they're leading the puppies and everything, and Pongo's keeping track of them. And then, you know, they come across, you know, they're in the blizzard, and then there's collie that shows up. And it's like, come on, we have room for you at the barn over here. And, you know, so they follow the collie, and they get into the barn. Of course, that's, you know, they all get to eat. You know, all the puppies get to drink from the cows. And, like, you know, we've thought, you know, it's like we've been paying attention to the Twilight Park, and we thought we'd missed you and everything. So they must keep relaying information back and forth. Like, Sergeant, or the Colonel probably passed on more information of, like, okay, so they have the puppies, and they're traveling back to London. Who can help with this type thing? So they're using it as, like, a very good network, you know. Yeah, Perdita just refers to it in the beginning as, like, it's just a rumor mill. But you know, it's like no, or it's a gossip chain or whatever. So it's just like now it's no, it's very very much being used for a very important thing to help the puppies get home. And you know, they get the pup, you know, they get, you know, from the barn, then you know they keep traveling and they get to this other little town where there's this moving truck that's going to help them, and they have this Labrador, the black Labrador, that helps them, of course, and that's of course where we get all of the puppies having to roll in the soot, which is adorable and very messy and probably not that easy to get out of their fur. Although Dalmatian fur is quite a bit shorter than Samoyed fur, so I don't think rolling raining in soot would be a good idea. But Dalmatians might get a little bit, might be a little bit easier to clean. At the very least, I highly doubt they shed as much. So you know they're rolling in the soot, and Jasper and Horace, of course, kind of show up, and that's when Cruella shows up and everything. And we get, you know, the puppies having to sneak past Cruella, and they're all getting into this moving truck that's headed for London, and you know, and they do manage to, you know, she spots them and she figures out that they're covered in coal and everything. And I love the fact that Horace makes a comment of, what if they rolled themselves in the coal as to cover them spots? Jasper, dogs are not that smart. You know, Horace keeps proving the fact that he's figuring out what the dogs are doing. So maybe you should start listening to Horace, since he at least seems to have a better idea of what's going on than you do. So we get that, and of course all the puppies get into the truck, and then we get the great chase scene of, you know, the moving truck and Cruella and Horace, and you know all the great driving sequences that they come up with that. And I will get into how they do that in a minute, after I finish talking about the original movie, because it's great how they interact with how they did this, and like, you know, kind of moving forward with the technology that was available at the time. And so we get a lot of, so we get those chase sequences, and of course Cruella and Horace and Jasper, you know, they all crash into each other, and her DeVille is ruined, and they're, you know, you idiots, you imbeciles, you fools, you know, just, you know, like insulting them, and just like, shut up, lady. And of course, you know, then, you know, we cut back to London, where it seems to be either just about Christmas time, because Anita appears to be decorating a tree. And we have Roger's song, you know, Cruella DeVille. I'm not going to sing anymore. Going on the radio, and of course, it, you know, she makes, you know, it's made us more money than we could ever hope for. And he's like, yeah, but I just can't believe that Pongo and Perdita would run away. Which, you know, I mean, Rainey likes to escape, but it's not, he's come back, but it's still the whole thing of, okay, yeah, can you not do that because we don't want you getting hurt? And I'm pretty sure that Anita and Roger probably searched all over to try to find Pongo and Perdita. They probably even put up, like, you know, lost posters or whatever for them. I mean, they put up pictures for the puppies. I mean, you know, they put in the newspaper articles for the puppies with pictures and everything. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they, you know, did the same thing about, you know, Pongo and Perdita. And of course, I'm pretty sure the news would have been like, oh yeah, put that in there, that, you know, that now the parents have run off, you know, probably like look for their puppies or whatever. And so we get you know, and so we get, you know, them talking and everything, and then there's, you know, knock at the door or whatever, and, you know, Nanny goes and opens the door, and it's like, you know, it rushes all these puppies and the two big dogs, and it's just like, Labradors? And it's like, no, they're covered in soot, and they start cleaning off this, you know, Pongo, Purdy, and then of course, you know, and then they start dusting off all the puppies and everything, and it's like all the ones with collars are there, so they know all the 15 are back, and then there's like all the other ones, so they're counting them all up, and, you know, Roger's doing all the math in his head, and it's just like, 99 plus 2, 101. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, but where did they all come from? And how are we going to take care of them? Or what are we going to do with them? We'll keep them. And then that resulted, of course, the end song of Dalmatian Plantation. And that, you know, I was like, so we do the Dalmatian Plantation song. And I love that because, I'll get to this a little bit more when I talk about the music in a minute, but, you know, it's like we get the Dalmatian Plantation, and they're, you know, singing and everything, and, you know, and that just results in like, okay, so, you know, Roger's gonna have another hit song and a great marketing plan. So they had all that, you know, that's where the movie ends. Keep all 101, all the 99 puppies, and of course Pongo and Perdita make 101, and have fun naming all of them. God. And then we get into a little bit for the history of the movie itself. The movie is based off of a book by a novelist and playwright Dorothy Gladys Doughty Smith, who's from England. She's English children's novelist, as I said. She wrote the book 101 Dalmatians in 1956, and Walt Disney read the book and very much latched on to the idea, and then took about 5 years or so to get the movie made, between development and filming and drawing and getting everything done and everything, before it was released in 1961. So the book is based off of pets, because she had Dalmatians, and pets at one point. One of them was a Dalmatian named Pongo. And from what I believe, she said she had a friend who had made a comment, not a mean comment or anything like that, not a Cruella comment or anything like that. It was just her friend had made a comment about that those dogs would make a lovely fur coat. Not meant in a mean way or a cruel way or anything like that. Because it was just a friend of hers that liked the dogs and everything anyway. So not the Cruella. And she's like, huh. So she ended up writing 101 Dalmatians. And she had tried to come up with, something later on to do a sequel. And she did do another sequel to it was called the Starlight Barking. Don't really know what it was about, but it doesn't, none of the animated series or the animated sequel that they had, or the 2 live action movies follow the Starlight Barking. It was just something else a little bit separate than that. She still, of course, had the book, and she was actually one of the very few authors that had given Walt such a high acclaim for the books, for the adaptation into the movie. Because a lot of other authors didn't necessarily like the adaptations of some of their books that he had gotten a hold of. Yeah, some don't. Some did, some didn't. She was one of the ones that very much did. Her Dalmatian had, as I think I said, had been named Pongo. So that's where the name for Pongo came from. Purdy's original name was Mrs. Pongo and Mrs. Pongo. So that ended up getting changed into Perdita, which was one just slight thing that she didn't like, but she understood what had to be done with that. And then we get into more of the graphic style of the movie, for the development of the movie. So Ub Iwerks, literally his first name is U.B. Ub, had been one of the people that had been with Disney the longest. He had been a friend of his or a co-worker of his way back when he had done Laugh-O-Grams and started Mickey and everything like that. He'd been the one that animated Mickey a lot in Steamboat Willie and a bunch of the other original Mickey shorts. And he had been the one that came up with the idea of using, I kid you not, Xerox photography to aid in the animation of 101 Dalmatians. Now, if you're a kid and you don't know what Xerox is, go ask your parents or your grandparents what Xerox is. It's basically like a giant version of a printer. And, over time, it got more and more sophisticated, of course, and much more slimmed down. At the time, the Xerox machine took up like 3 rooms for how big it was. But it made certain ways for having to transfer the drawings from the paper onto the cells, so then they could paint them a lot easier. So that's how they had done it. And initially, of course, because so much of the movie is, black and white dogs, so many of the characters are black and white dogs, it made it the perfect medium to be able to do for that. A lot of, like up until then, every single Disney movie up until that point had been done with hand-inked and hand-painted cells. So, you look at Sleeping Beauty, and this is the same example that they give in the bonus features for the 101 Dalmatians. You look at Sleeping Beauty. You look at her. She has this golden line all through her hair that outlines her hair. and this, more flesh-colored line that outlines her face, and the red line around her lips. And, her dress has, blue lines or pink lines, depending on the dress, that, fit that concept. And every single one of those lines for every single cell had to be hand inked and then hand painted. So yeah, that took a lot of time, and it was a very expensive process, but it was a process that at the time worked best for the studio. But once the 1960 area came around, Snow White or Sleeping Beauty was the last movie. I'm pretty sure there's been some that at least have had some still the stylized of it, but up until then, Sleeping Beauty was the last one made where everything was hand inked and hand drawn and hand painted. Once they started using the Xerox, they still hand painted like the backgrounds and painted the characters on after the cells were printed. Then they would paint the background, paint the character, but the cells were done via Xerox, which is, as I said, a way of printing, transferring it from the paper to the picture, to the cell, to the clear cell. And that made things a lot less expensive, but unfortunately it got rid of their inking department, which, yeah. And we get, it gets more and more graphic in how they did it. It made things more and more technologically advanced. And Walt didn't necessarily like how a lot of it had turned out, but later on he ended up acquiescing. I think it was like 2 weeks before he died. He went and talked to one of the people that had been in charge of part of that for the animation sections of it. He had gone to the person and said, this was 2 weeks before the guy died. Before Walt died, he went and talked to the guy that had done certain design for the movie, and he apologized and said that he did end up liking it in the end. It was just he was losing this form of an animation that he was so used to. Walt Disney was very much a perfectionist. That shows in a lot of his work. No argument there. But so with the 101 Dalmatians, we get more and more of a transition into more modern ways of doing things. They used the Xerox process even later on for different things, and that worked better in combining it into different things with the computer animation later on. So it was like that start of it kind of worked its way into other things that helped. So it still worked with how they transfer the cells and everything. And there was like so many other things that they had done in the movie that just make things so great. And then of course we have the music for the movie, as I said. We had, Cruella de Vil, the song, and then, the little canine crunchies, little commercial where they sing the canine crunchies. And then, of course, there's the Dalmatian Plantation. So, Dalmatian Plantation had kind of had two songs. They had done one first, and then there had been another one that, Walt had wanted to, can we have a different song for this? And then it being a different version of Dalmatian Plantation. But with Cruella de Vil, it had originally been a more, I think from what I understand, it had been a slightly more upbeat tune, not like super upbeat, like just, a little bit more upbeat than it was. But then the guy that wrote the songs, he was, I think it was George Brums, I think. No, it was something like that. I don't remember exactly who it was, but double check just go and look who did the songs for Lady in the Tramp, or for 101 Dalmatians. A lot of the ones are done by the same people that did like the stuff for Lady in the Tramp and Alice in Wonderland and Sleeping Beauty and stuff like that. Just several different movies all at the same time, within succession of each other, and we get a whole bunch of. He had done a different version of the song, probably fairly similar lyrics, but then he had heard on one of the drives in, he had heard kind of a jazz type thing, jazz blues type song, and he's like, let's try it that way. And then that ended up doing a slight rewrite on the melody for the song, and that's where we get the way that Cruella de Vil is now, those beats that we're very used to for Cruella de Vil. Ironically enough, Roger in the movie, as I said, is supposed to be a songwriter, which you think would lend to a lot of different, oh, we can put a ton of different songs in this movie because Roger's a songwriter. I mean, we have him, singing Cruella de Vil, and then they mention that it's his that he wrote, and then of course we have the Canine Crunchies thing, but, and then we have the Dalmatian plantation at the end, but there's not really any other ones for the there's not really any other songs that we see Roger writing or singing or that are in the movie. We get the great background music, of course, in the movie that's wonderful, but not really a lot beyond that. Other facts about 101 Dalmatians. There's the all total. The film features 6,469,952 spots, with Pongo sporting 72, Perdita sporting 69, and each puppy having 32. So yeah, that's a lot of spots that add up rather quickly. Cruella de Vil was actually the last character that was animated by one of Disney's 9 old men. He wasn't the last of the 9 old men by any means, because a lot of them ended up working on stuff later on down the line. But the gentleman that animated her, that had been his last time as an animator. I think he had still done like other things, like other, reference things, drawing, character design, or something like that. Story input and stuff like that. But I think that was like the last time that he had animated a full-on character. And unfortunately, for the life of me, I cannot remember what his name was. And then we also get the lady that voices Cruella. May sound slightly familiar. It's not that she was in a whole lot of other Disney stuff, but she was the narrator of Cinderella at the beginning of Cinderella, and then I don't know if she's at the end of Cinderella, but at the beginning of Cinderella, when we're getting Cinderella's backstory, that's the same lady that voices Cruella de Vil, which I think they do a great job with. So they just have a lot of fun with that, with the different characters. Now we move into the spin-offs in the series and the sequels. So the first one that they had was the 101 Dalmatians animated series, which I don't remember exactly what year that started in, but it was on Disney Channel, or Kids Disney or whatever it was called at the time, in like the early 2000s. It's an animated series that takes place probably just like a couple of weeks after the original movie ends. And it's, Anita and Roger bought a farm, and that's where they take all the puppies and everything. So there's the constant gag of, oh, we got to keep counting all the puppies to make sure they're all here. But then they just let the puppies kind of run wild on the farm. And there's like pigs there, and there's like some cats, and there's like a chicken named Spot that wants to be a Dalmatian. Yeah. The 3 main pups that we tend to interact with are Lucky, who is, of course, the same one that was the little stillborn. Rolly, who is the one that's very much hungry throughout the course of the whole movie that we see in the original movie. And then there is Cadpig. I don't know where the name came from. She is the runt of the litter, and she is possibly the most intelligent, if not deluded, of all the puppies. And it's the 3 of them, and then the rooster pops up every now and then. Of course, we have Anita and Roger there in the series at various points in time. We have Pongo and Perdita are there. They have, I don't know if they had designs for all 99 puppies, but they have fun with it. This is some of the artwork for it. Cruella's in it, of course. She pops up a whole lot. Jasper and Horace are in it. And for some reason, I remember there being, it's been a long time since I've watched this. It is on Disney Plus, so if you have Disney Plus, you can always just go and watch a little bit of it. I don't necessarily think it withstands the test of time that well, but it's okay. They do have an episode, I think, where they do like a spoof on A Christmas Carol, and they're trying to make Cruella be a better person. I don't remember how that goes. Probably it ends up like she ends up being better, but then she's not, and I don't know exactly what happens with Cruella in that case. But yeah, so they're there. And then we have the animated sequel that was 101 Dalmatians 2, Hatch's London Adventure. Now, It has been a very long time since I've seen this, and I've probably only seen it about twice, I think. I have it, it's just not one of my favorite Disney sequels, but it was made in 2003. It probably takes place around the same time as where the animated series takes place, because all the puppies are still puppies. And the premise of the show is that Patch and the others end up going to London to watch Thunderbolt. You know, the Thunderbolt Adventure Hour. That's the same dog that the same little TV show that they were watching in the original movie. And he's supposed, Thunderbolt is like fed up, I think, with something, and he runs away. And then he has like a sidekick that tries to take over for everything. I don't remember exactly what happens. It's Patch and Thunderbolt end up interacting and bonding, and it just stuff happens, and then there's other things that happen, and comeuppance are ensued, and I don't Cruella's back and still obsessed with the puppies, and just all kinds of other stuff that happens with that. Again, it's been a long time since I've watched it. I may end up rewatching it at some point, but it's not really one of my favorite sequels. Although I will probably state it's not my least favorite of the sequels. You'll find out what that one is when we get around to discussing the original movie for that one, but that'll be a little ways down the line since it's like one of the ones in the 90s. I mean, some of the sequels are fine. Most of the sequels are fine. Like I said, the two Cinderella sequels, I think they're fine. But for this, it's just, it's just been a long time since I've seen it. And eventually, Thunderbolt and Patch and everything get back to where they're supposed to be, and Patch and Perdita and Pongo and all the puppies were like looking for Patch, of course, and Anita and Roger, and the kids all everybody ends up back together, and they end up being fine, and they use the Twilight Bark to send an SOS, and just all this other fun stuff that happens, and like they get captured, and just all types of stuff happens in the sequel, and I just don't remember all of it. Go and watch it; it's fine. And eventually, Patch gets to be the new sidekick on the Thunderbolt Hour, and all the other puppies get to serve as like extras for the movie that Thunderbolt was trying to film, which is just funny. And then we get into the other animated series that they had that came out in 2019. I think it was a British Canadian animated series from Disney. It is called 101 Dalmatian Street, is what it's called. It takes place quite a few years after the original movie. So these are not Pongo and Perdita's puppies. These are, I think, their great grandchildren puppies. So the premise of the novel, or the premise of the animated series, is that it centers around a large family of 99 Dalmatian puppies whose names begin with the letter D, and their parents Doug and Delilah, the latter of which is a great-great-granddaughter of Pongo and Perdita. They often leave the eldest siblings, Dylan and Dolly, in charge while they are busy at work, whatever dogs do for work. The Dalmatians live by themselves at 101 Dalmatian Street, located in Camden Town, so it still takes place in London, in the 21st century, with no human supervision. Because 99 puppies in a house with no human supervision is a great idea. As their owner, Dottie Smith, I'll get to that in a second, an eccentric billionaire, left them their house and went to live on an island. So the concept for the character for the Dottie Smith is, of course, she's based off of the author of the original 101 Dalmatians. And she has puppies that are the descendants of Pongo and Perdita. We do get a picture of Pongo and Perdita in the show. And these are what a bunch of the puppies look like in the show. I have not seen it. I may look it up at some point. It looks at least somewhat interesting to at least give a couple of episodes a shot at some point, but I don't know yet. It seems to be, it's a way of continuing the story, and it makes sense that they set it more in modern day, since, you just make it be descendants of Pongo and Perdita. So I'm like, okay, that works. In regards to 101 Dalmatians being in other media, we of course have the House of Mouse stuff. Pongo and Perdita make several cameos in House of Mouse along with the puppies. So we have Pongo and Perdita here. Looks like they're on a date. Then we have a few other bits of, the puppies popping up with them, I think. Uh, and then I think we do have, Cruella has at least a couple of ones. We have this funny bit of her interacting with Beast from Beauty and the Beast, which I just find funny. It's just like, no, you cannot have my coat. She's like, ooh, I really like your fur. Or there's another bit where like Goofy is bringing her like a doggy bag, and she has like Pluto is the one delivering it. And it's like, here's your doggy bag, Mr. Bill. And she's like, forget the bag, I'll take the doggy. It's like, okay, no. Pongo makes a cameo appearance in Oliver and Company. He's seen trying to break away from Roger when they're doing a big musical number at the beginning of the movie. Not really too much with that. I mean, he's not, just like cameos, like what happened with, Lady and the Tramp popping up in, Lady and the Tramp characters popping up in 101 Dalmatians, or with the other, the other Lady and the Tramp characters pop up in, Oliver and Company. And then we kind of move into Kingdom Hearts, which is kind of the last bit that I'm going to talk about today, because it has been a very long time since I have seen the 2 live action movies, the 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians, with Glenn Close wonderfully playing Cruella de Vil. Sneak on that. This is one of the images of her as Cruella de Vil, and I just think she looks awesome, and she pulls off the role amazingly. I'm going to watch those, and then I'm going to do the review about those 2 for the 2 live action ones and the Descendants stuff and the Once Upon a Time stuff. But first we're going to do the Kingdom Hearts stuff. Pongo and Perdita make an appearance in the original Kingdom Hearts. So they have been transported to Traverse Town, where they are in, their owners, Anita and Roger and Nanny, have all disappeared with the destruction of their world, and all 99 puppies have been separated and scattered across all the other worlds that you have to visit throughout Kingdom Hearts. And so Pongo and Perdita are in this little house in Traverse Town. It's a very nice house. And you go and visit them at one point when you first get to Traverse Town, when you make your way into the area, and you talk to Pongo and Perdita, and you find, oh, all of their puppies are missing. And one of your tasks throughout the game is you are supposed to find different chests throughout Kingdom Hearts, throughout all the different worlds that you travel to. You find these different chests, you open the chest, and it will send 3 puppies back to Pongo and Perdita. Different chests do different things. Some chests have puppies in them, some chests have items. It just does different things. Some chests have like, oh, now you have this new skill, or whatever the case is. You send different puppies, and like every time you send so many puppies back to Pongo and Perdita, and then you go and visit them, then they give Sora gifts. And that's just cute. And kind of as a tie-in for that, every time you go and visit the house, there's more and more puppies scattered throughout the house, until like all the puppies are back. And then you just get this funny bit of like a Sora just being surrounded by puppies, and they're adorable. And this is what some of them look like in Kingdom Hearts. They're so cute. I don't think they gave every single puppy an individual design for this, but Pongo and Perdita, for the animation for the Kingdom Hearts, for when the original one came out, they look fine. Kind of the tail end on that for Pongo and Perdita is, of course, when Sora finally puts Kingdom Hearts back where it's supposed to be and seals it. Pongo and Perdita and all the puppies get returned home, and of course they're reunited with Anita and Roger and Nanny and all of that. Cruella is not, as far as I can remember, I do not remember having to deal with Cruella de Vil in Kingdom Hearts. She's not really, in Kingdom Hearts itself, she's not really one of the ones that has powers. You don't really deal with her having Heartless or anything like that. That more interacts more with, Once Upon a Time, when I get to that with the live action stuff. But for the most part, that's what there is for the animated stuff. Kingdom Hearts, House of Mouse, Dalmatians, Streets, the animated series, and of course the original and the sequel for the animated movies. The sequel animation isn't bad. it's not one of the movies that I particularly care about all that. It's not one of the ones that I was particularly impressed with. Probably just because it wasn't one of the ones that I had ended up, I guess, liking that much when it first came out, or I just hadn't been as interested in it when it first came out. Some of the sequels I was much more interested in. Some of the other ones I wasn't. I love 101 Dalmatians. It's definitely very much one of the ones, and I love Pongo and Perdita for how they interact with each other. They're definitely some of my favorite animal couples. Probably gonna end up doing a list at some point of like, these are, all the Disney princess couples in order for, my least favorite to my favorite couple, and these are all of my, all the different animal couples that, least favorite to favorite. Same thing with like the, the human couples that are not, prince and princess stuff, which is a much smaller of a list, because I was thinking the other night, I'm like, well, what other couples are there that are, human couples that are not, prince, princess, or something along those lines? And I'm like, well, there's Anita and Roger. If I'm going to expand, I can go with, Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable, from, Kim Possible. But I wasn't really coming up with any of the other ones that are ones, and this would only be stuff that I have seen. So I know that a lot of people are like, well, go with something from Gravity Falls, or go with something from this or from that. And I just haven't seen Gravity Falls. I know it's Disney, or at least I'm pretty sure Gravity Falls is Disney, but I just haven't seen it. Any of the couples that would be on this list are ones that I have seen, interacted with, that I have seen from either the original, from the movies, or from animated series that I have seen. But that'll be a list for later on down the line. Maybe I'll end up doing a special on that for like Valentine's Day or something at some point. Probably not this year, because I want to get the Disney movies done first. But we'll see what happens. So thank you very much. I hope that you very much enjoyed this video. I hope that you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Darling, it's the very fastest way to send news. And if our puppies are anywhere in the city, the London dogs will know. Now, we'll send the word tonight when our pets take us for a walk in the park.